Continued from part one.
Now back to live action. I have Groundhog's Day at number 5. All right. I'm sure we've all seen the movies where they get stuck in a time loop, repeating the same day after day, but Groundhog's Day is definitely the one that you have to watch if you have never seen them, or even if you have. Bill Murray is always fantastic in his comedic roles. He is definitely my sense of humor. And then Andie MacDowell, his co-star, is also equally great. She brings a lot of human to it, and Bill Murray, you gotta love to hate him in the beginning. He's just that narcissistic guy that ends up changing towards the end of the film, but in very endearing ways. I love the way that it's filmed. It's as if he's living the same day constantly. The lessons you learn in it are really sweet, and then there's even those really emotional parts where there is a time where you cannot change things. No matter how many times you get a chance to redo it, you're just always stuck with the same outcome, and you have to learn to be okay with it. And I think that this movie really brings that to heart. And as a kid, I think that was really great to learn. So I really appreciate this film.
I don't think it's a huge surprise to find out that Quentin Tarantino is my favorite director of all time. He's truly made some great films that could easily top a best of list for me. Yet for the longest time, I had only really seen Kill Bill from him, which was good, but definitely not that chart topper that I've been talking about. So, just like with Guy Ritchie, I ended up going back to see his earlier works in college. Which brings me to my number 5, Reservoir Dogs. This is exactly the type of film I want to make, I thought after seeing it for the first time. Interesting characters, suspenseful story full of twists and turns, and that dialogue.
If I know what kind of guy you were, I never would have agreed to work with you.
Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy? Or are you gonna bite?
Good God, that dialogue. Even being his first film, Quentin was already a master wordsmith. Back when I would write scripts, there was always a bit of Quentin making its way into my story, no matter what I wrote. And honestly, could you blame me? Taking this film that centers on a heist gone wrong and filming it in a way that never shows us the main heist, but still keeps you on the edge of your seat, that's just masterful. There really is no other way to say it. Now, don't be surprised if one of Quentin's films ends up on a list in the future as well. Now let's change gears completely, going from a fun action film to a very serious action film. At number 4, I have Saving Private Ryan. I still argue that Saving Private Ryan has one of the best opening scenes of all time. It goes from this anxiety-driven sequence of being in an enclosed area to sheer pandemonium as people start dropping left and right. There's this hopelessness that is in the air as the horrors of war are shown in full force. And you really can't help but think to yourself, good God, how the hell did we overcome this? What follows after that opening harkens back to My Love of Adventure, as these soldiers have to find the last surviving member of a family. At the center is a fantastic performance by Tom Hanks, who for the first time ever, I saw as a badass, a total contrast from his usual performances. Does the movie still have its overly sappy moments? Yeah, it's a Steven Spielberg flick, but that doesn't diminish the truly amazing moments. This is a film that I actually didn't see until I was much older, and I'm really glad I did, because I don't really think I would have appreciated as much watching it as a kid as I did when I did.
And now moving on to my 4th pick, I see The Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense is another movie that I ended up seeing late in life, mainly because I did not enjoy ghost movies. But in watching this one, I felt that this was a really great movie. Considering M. Night Shyamalan has been having a lot of misses ever since, this movie had so many wins in it. It had the mystery. It had the twist ending that nobody saw coming. It had all the little clues that you can see, which I love sleuthing, so I'm all about the clues. And then Haley Joel Osment is beyond his years in acting. As a kid, he was ridiculous. I felt like he was a terrified little boy. Seeing as how it was more suspense than jump scares, it was definitely the kind of movie that I can appreciate, and still do to this day. And for my number 3, we can welcome back Anastasia. Now, we've already seen this on our list earlier, so I'm not going to dwell too much on it. I am going to make the point that I really love the songs. I desperately love the artwork. I cannot say enough about the style and the livelihood of the people and the colors across the screen. It is just a fantastic visual piece of work. This is a movie that resonates really well with me. It's a classic princess story without it being too Disney. It has some death references and a little bit of scary stuff going on, but it's definitely worth a watch if you've never seen it.
Breaking into my top 3, we have The Shawshank Redemption. Also a film I never saw until older. Everyone always went on and on about what an amazing movie this was and how I just had to see it. And when I finally got around to it, yeah, it was just as good as people said it was. And this is actually pretty rare, as I very little often agreed with the overall consensus of a film. Yet, I could not find anything I disliked about it. It's also a film that's very much ingrained in our society. All the parts of the film that stick out, I realized I already knew. The "get busy living" or "get busy dying" line. The poster with the secret passage behind it. Tim Robbins throwing his arm up in the rain, finally embracing freedom. Whether you know of these or not, you've no doubt seen them in some form or another. I also like how they never flat out tell you whether Tim was guilty of his crime or not, really just leaving it up to you to decide whether it was important or not. And I think that's pretty bold for such a mainstream movie, for a movie that so many people love. Bottom line, if you were like me and you haven't seen this film, you really ought to give it a watch. For my penultimate number 2, I have Goodfellas. Martin Scorsese was another director that I just had to go back to see all of his works. While he has had a lot of great films, to me, personally, his best is Goodfellas. Just like with Shawshank, the movie is completely ingrained in our society. How about that opening line?
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
What about the funny clown?
Well, I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
All the cursing?
Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
Motherfucking mutt! You fucking piece of shit!
Yeah, chances are that you know more about the film than you realize, even if you haven't seen it. Yet, there's still so much more. The real-life tale of Henry Hill, a mafia man who turns into an informant, is full of some really interesting and intense moments. And if you have not seen this movie, you're really doing yourself a disservice. There's a lot that can be said about Goodfellas. A lot that you probably already know, and a lot that you just need to experience by watching the movie. And just like I said with my Reservoir Dogs, there's a lot of very interesting behind-the-scenes stuff that happened. So I really recommend watching some of that really cool trivia after watching the film.
And now for my number 2, I have Homeward Bound. This movie is really well done. It is a movie that I really remember from childhood, not only because I liked animals, but the acting in it was amazing. I really love Michael J. Fox as the puppy, Pitbull. I thought that the animals reacting with the voice actors in the scenes was really great. Like when the dog was hurt, he sounded hurt, the voice actor. So I think the editing was amazing in this movie. I really love the story. Animals traveling far to get to their children. Everyone hopes that of their own animal, right? How many gerbils have we lost, or cats run away that you're like, they're just trying to find me, and well, they just ran away from you. So not quite the same. But one day, you know, you hope they'll come back to you. This movie definitely gave me like hopes and dreams of like a mystical world where animals were thinking things in favor of you. So this is why that it's made it to my number 2 spot. And now my number 1, I have A Muppet Christmas Carol. A Muppet Christmas Carol to me is the epitome of kids' Christmas movies. It has the classic story of Charles Dickens in a fun and inventive way. It stays true to the story with adding classical, original songs. I play them all the time at Christmas. They're probably the only ones that I don't grow tired of. The characters fit really well in the movie as far as like the Muppets. And of course, the guest star, Michael Caine, is always a fantastic addition. The Muppets have never gone wrong when selecting their cast, and this is just another proof that they're fantastic. And if you didn't know this, if you have one of the original copies like myself, there's actually a song in there that they've edited out for reason of it slowing the pace of the movie. But it's a really great love song, so hopefully you guys get to enjoy it. It's one of my favorites actually, so I'm glad I still have the original version.
My number 1 is not only my favorite film of the 90s, but my favorite film of all time. And to me, that's really amazing that the movie that I would come to love more than any other, no other film has come close to decrowning this film, came out so soon after my birth. And I think I've seen a shit ton of films. And then to me, that still strikes me as one of the most amazing facts. My number 1 film, Pulp Fiction. Where do I begin? Well, for one, I was so mesmerized by this film the first time I saw it that as soon as it was done, the credits were rolling, my roommate happened to walk in. I turned to her and I said, "You have to watch this movie." And I sat down with her right there and then, and I watched it again. The following day, I took it to a friend's house and I told him, "You need to watch this movie." And I sat down and I watched it again. In fact, every time I hear someone has not seen it, I will sit down and watch it with them again. And I never get bored of it. Quentin's writing is so brilliant. Each time I watch the movie, I catch something new. For instance, was Vincent's death caused because he didn't get out of the profession like Jules did? Or was Jules' departure the cause of it? Would both of them have been killed if Jules didn't go? It's these deep questions that don't really have answers that you ponder long after the movie is over. How about this one? Who's the person who keyed Vincent's car? It's most likely Butch after their heated exchange at the bar. Now the movie doesn't straight out tell you, but watching it as many times as I did, you start to catch those little tiny pieces of information. You start to see the subtle little things that they don't outright tell you, and it's just fantastic. And then there's some really cool stuff behind the scenes that Quentin set up, such as Vincent and Mr. Blonde from Reservoir Dogs being related. Now those are the things that I absolutely love about Tarantino films, and Pulp Fiction does it, I believe, better than any other film. While no other film has come close to topping this one for me, I really hope one day that it does get overshadowed by another film, because it would be really sad to think that this was the ultimate movie experience of my life and that I'm never going to have another one coming. Regardless of what the future holds, it's not going to change what I feel about this movie. It is fantastic, pure and simple. It is amazing, it's cool, its dialogue is superb, and it is my favorite movie of the 90s. I really love this film.
Yeah, you know what? I just saw it recently at the behest of a certain somebody, and I did think it was actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I tell you, you haven't seen this film, you tell me you haven't seen it, we're sitting down and seeing it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this list. It's really a very personal list for us because we did a lot of our growing up in the 90s. You know, we were born late 80s, so really the 90s is the time that we started having our coherent thoughts. we were introduced to this stuff for the first time. And for me, it's a very personal list.
Yeah, and if you're a 90s kid like us, we hope that you appreciate this look back. And if you were born a little bit further out, I hope that you get a chance to check out these movies. I promise you will not be disappointed.
We do want to do other lists like this, tackling the other decades that we've been alive in, so really keep a lookout for those films as well. And guys, I hope you have the happiest of holidays. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave your wrong comments in the areas below like you always do. And until next time.
Have a good night.